Hello everyone. So I'm going to give you a tour of parts of Makati, Manila, the Philippines. Just walking along a road called Makati Avenue and maybe straying a little bit from there. So Makati is one of the most urban parts of Manila. It's a district of Manila. And along this part of the street, there's a lot of restaurants and hotels. And a man selling some shady goods. Here's a pharmacy. And trying to get you a good view here. So this green and red vehicle on my left, that one, that's called a jeepney, and that's one of the cheapest ways to get around. It's kind of like a bus, but Philippine style, like a small, maybe like a mini bus, sort of. And you see them all over the Philippines. And I mentioned there's a lot of restaurants in this area, a lot of hotels, and also there seem to be a lot of banks. And a bit further down that way is some sort of financial district. And sort of interesting to me is that it seems the main sort of foreign food here is American food, Chinese food, Korean food, and Japanese food. And there's a little bit of Persian and Arabic foods, but those are much less, I think. So Manila's an interesting place to visit, I think. I don't think it'd be everyone's cup of tea to actually live here, but for visiting, I think there's quite a lot of interesting things to see. Yesterday I went to the National Museum of Natural History, which I really enjoyed. Thought it was quite good. See some dinosaur bones and lots of other natural history stuff. Coming up here, Jollibee is kind of a Philippine McDonald's. It's yeah, they're all over the place, and at least in Manila, Jollibee, and I also saw them in Hong Kong, and supposedly they're in other countries too. And this here is an armored car. You see a lot of them in the Philippines. And another thing I've noticed quite a bit is that almost every big business, even moderately big business, even restaurants, pharmacies, and so on, have a security guard, at least one security guard. So you'll see security guards, at least in Manila, all over the place. Almost every relatively big business has a security guard. But that being said, I haven't actually felt unsafe in the Philippines. In my opinion, at least in my experience, it's a safe country. And down that way is more urban part, and I think a financial district. And I'm not sure if you can see in this video, but way down that way, there's a Shangri-La hotel. Which, if you don't know, it's a really famous hotel company, and I think it's quite high luxury for a hotel. And one thing I did forget to do is bring an umbrella. I went for a run and now I'm making this video. It seems to rain pretty much almost every day in where I am. And there was a big typhoon about a week or two ago, but actually where I am right now, I wasn't really affected at all, other than a little bit of wind. But I think here we're too far from the ocean to have been really affected. So although you do see a lot of really nice buildings here. Different parts of Manila, I've seen quite a lot of homeless people. So this is a city with a lot of contrast. Some areas that are very wealthy and people who are very wealthy, and some people who have very little. So this area I haven't seen any homeless people, but by the National Library and I mentioned the National Museum of Natural History, there's a lot of homeless people in that area. So getting around the Philippines, or Manila specifically, mainly I use either jeepneys, those sort of small minibuses, and taxis. And when I'm not in an area close to a lot of taxis, I usually use an app called Grab. And Grab is an alternative to Uber, but I think it's much bigger in the Philippines. And it allows you to use cash or credit card. And basically with Grab, the taxi driver will still use the meter in his car. Almost always it's a male driver. And then Grab usually adds on about 90 pesos or 100 pesos for the booking fee. So this area has two nice statues. That's a statue of some Philippine general who fought against the Spanish. And then across the street is some sultan who also fought against the Spanish. I don't know much about the history of the Philippines before, let's say, before it was a U.S. colony, and before that it was a Spanish colony. I don't know much about it, the history before that. Maybe it was a bunch of small kingdoms, kind of like Indonesia, but not sure about that. So, across the street. So as I mentioned, this statue is of a sultan. And I think I've only been in this area maybe one time, so I don't know much about this area. Or maybe I've never been to this area. I know I've walked around different parts, but yeah, so as I mentioned, it's interesting to me that there's a lot of areas that look really nice. They've got really nice buildings, but it's a bit sad, I suppose, that seem to be some areas with a lot of poor people and a lot of homeless people. Now the Manila does have an LRT, and the LRT stands for light rail transport or transportation, and that's kind of the metro for Manila. And I've taken that 2 or 3 times. Took it yesterday, and it's pretty good. So if you're close to an LRT station, that's a great way to get around. One thing I haven't mentioned is that traffic in Manila is just horrible, like really, really horrible. Especially say after about 4 p.m. till maybe 7. Although a distance might be very short between some point to another point you want to go to, it might take you a very long time to actually get there by car or jeepney or whatever. And I actually live in an area right now called Mandaluyong, which is across the river from here. And I generally actually prefer to get a taxi in this area, Makati, because seems to be less traffic, and where I live, basically there's a road, but it's only a 2-lane road, and it's always congested. And the bridge across the river also slows things down, so this is a good area to get a taxi. Okay, so I think that's a hotel, the Peninsula, if I'm not mistaken. There's a hotel, Shangri-La. And I've not actually seen this statue before. Let's see what it is. Okay, so interesting. A female leader who led rebellions against the Spanish. And I was actually on this road yesterday, I think, Ayala. Show you a bit more of this. So this is an area, I think it's commercial district. And on this road there's at least one nice mall and a bunch of financial businesses, banks and so on. So this here is a bus, bigger bus, but I think they're much rarer in Manila. Maybe just the really urban areas they have these kinds. Ah, I didn't know about this. This is the Philippine Stock Exchange. So, very interesting. Let's see, Philippine Stock Exchange Plaza. Okay, so this was a short tour of a part of Manila called Makati, and I hope you enjoyed this video.